Hello, I'm Liam Fogarty. You're watching Bay TV. Now, you may or may not have heard of a place called the Baltic Triangle. It's what used to be a former derelict part of Liverpool, just south of the city centre, sandwiched between the River Mersey and Chinatown. Until quite recently, it was a rather scuzzy, down-at-heel part of the city, but now it's booming with more than 300 small businesses, 1,200 entrepreneurs and employees, and it looks a little bit like the future of the city, full of creative, enterprising people, many of them young people. My guest today isn't quite so young, but he is a key figure in the Baltic Triangle. Mark Lawler of Baltic Creative, you're very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're Managing Director of Baltic Creative. Who are Baltic Creative?
Well, Baltic Creative are a commercial landlord, but we focus specifically on creative and digital industries. We've been based out of the Baltic Triangle now for just on 5 years. Actually, to the month, 2009, we took possession of the buildings. And we went through a process of sort of 2.5 years refurbishing those buildings to create spaces for specifically creative and digital industries.
Who spotted the potential? Because it was, and to an extent still is, a part of the city that's easily overlooked.
Yeah, I guess it sort of happened organically, I think. The area, obviously, historically, was of low value. And as creative and digital industries across the city have been moved out of different areas as values rise, I'm thinking of the Matthew Street area, the Rope Walks area. As that sort of process has happened, creative and digital industries have sort of moved on to the next sort of quirky place, really. Baltic Triangle, is that place. Obviously, 7-8 years ago, organisations like Biennial located to the Triangle. At the time, Elevator just opened, where musicians and artists were based. And then A Foundation opened as well. So it sort of became a place organically, really, where creatives and artists, found it as the next place to go, really, where rents were affordable.
Now, paint a picture for us of the area, because historically, as I say, it was full of old warehouses, kind of small light industry and paint shops, little garages and so on. What's it like now?
Well, there's still much of that industry there, and we want to protect that and allow it to exist, together with all the other industries which have moved in just over the last few years. So, there are bakers and there are food operators and just micro breweries, and they sit comfortably with creative and digital industries, as they sit comfortably with venues like places like Camp and Furnace and Constellations, these sort of early evening, nighttime economy venues.
When people say it's a trendy part of town, do you kind of flinch a little?
No, not really, I don't think. I would, although I'm not the trendiest, I think it is perceived as being a cool place in Liverpool, because it has got lots of creative and digital industries there, and they are intrinsically sort of connected with with creativity and art. In fact, the area itself has a vision, and that vision is not just about business. It's a vision which also recognises the value of art and recognises the value of events. So with that comes creativity, and comes, I think, a bit of coolness when you add music and all of that into the mix.
Let's talk about the C word, creativity, creatives. It's quite a hard term to pin down, isn't it? Because you can be a creative engineer or a creative accountant or a creative head teacher. Who are the creatives that populate your workspaces and who are making the Triangle a kind of place to go to?
We've got a mixed bag. I mean, Baltic Creative Space, obviously our focus is creative and digital industries, and I'll mention some of those businesses in a second. But in the Baltic Triangle area itself, there's lots of different industry there, and we are keen to protect that long term, as I've said. But in terms of what we do at Baltic Creative, we've got Biennial, a tenant of ours, Liverpool Sound City, District, a music venue. We've got film production spaces, we've got music production spaces, artists, app developers, web developers, an auction house. So, this idea of creative creativity sort of, being difficult to pin down. I think it is, but I think we like that. It attracts and gives us the opportunity as a commercial landlord to work with lots of different types of business, and also the way we've developed the space gives us lots of opportunity to work with, smaller businesses, younger businesses who are trying to establish themselves. But it also allows us to work with, businesses who are longer, more established organisations, maybe employ more people as well.
Let's talk about that space. It's quite something. Effectively, it's a series of sheds. It's like a hothouse for creative small businesses. Was the design meant to actually encourage people to network and to collaborate and share ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. The brief to the architect, I always remember the conversation really with our architect was, on the written brief we provided, was all about sort of bringing their creativity to the space really. We did the first phase where the approach, we took 3 of our 18 warehouses, and the first phase was very much a white box office environment, which, we left incredibly quickly, but didn't actually add anything creatively really. So we got a local architect who understood the area, understood the businesses, understood the market, and his vision really was to create an environment where businesses could, come to a central location. Our cafe, the creative campus has provided us with that. And we spoke, to be honest, more about the communal spaces and the cafe area and the meeting spaces than we ever did about the offices, to be honest. Once you get into a shed, studio, it's very much like other offices, sockets, plugs, data, things, normal office environment really. But it's them outside spaces, those communal spaces where businesses are able to collaborate, which adds real value, I think, to the place.
You're very keen on the whole idea of a cluster, aren't you? The idea that simply by working next door to each other, you can generate ideas and also generate business. Are there kind of practical examples whereby you have tenants who've grown because of the connections they've made?
Well, we've just completed the 5-year economic review of the scheme, and we've challenged our tenants this year with lots of questionnaires, tenant forum meetings, interviews for a film we've had produced. We've done lots of stuff with the tenants this year, but the economic review is sort of pinning down the economic value of the scheme. And as part of that process, we needed to understand more about collaboration and how businesses are actually working with each other. We don't pay lip service to that. Our leases and licenses allow our creative campus tenants and our managed workspace tenants to actually share up to 50% of their footprint. So we don't just pay lip service to it. We actually write that into the leases and licenses.
So if one of your tenants wants to, I don't know, get a graphic artist in, or someone who's good at organising an event, they can sublet effectively.
Absolutely,
and they don't need your permission.
They don't need our permission as long as, I say they don't need our permission, we obviously have to vet the businesses they share with, and as long as they are within the sector and they are supporting creativity, we allow those collaborations to happen. Obviously, we're looking to encourage that. As I say, this economic review we produced, we've just done an analysis, and we've found that 75% of our businesses, and we've got about 70 businesses operating through the scheme, are collaborating in some way. So they're either sharing their space, they're either buying services off another company, they're either joint bidding in for collaborative projects to allow them to punch above their weight. So there's we see there's a real value in that within the sector historically anyway. All we're trying to do really as a commercial landlord is provide the environment to allow that to happen really.
And it is creative and digital industries. And there was a time maybe 10, 15 years ago when Liverpool as a city was really at the cutting edge of a lot of things like computer game design and development. It all went very quiet for a while and people moved away, they left the city. What's the state of that sector now?
Well, whilst there has been problems in the past obviously, and the Sony studio closing a few years back. What's been interesting about that sort of subsector of the sector, if you like, is that actually many of those people who were involved in those organisations, were my age really. So, they had kids at school, and many of those people have stayed in Liverpool. And over the recent years, many of those people have set up new businesses, creating jobs within those businesses, and many of those organisations are based in the Baltic Triangle. So it's great that much of that talent has stayed in Liverpool, and I think now what we're beginning to see actually is a bit of a rebirth of the gaming sort of sector, if you like, in Liverpool.
Because the potential earnings from these are absolutely massive.
Incredible. I mean, we've got one business at the moment who just producing a couple of games with Sony that are coming out before Christmas, and these are these are incredibly scalable businesses. If it hits big. So
and these will be on things like PlayStation.
Yeah, all the platforms really, Xbox and everything else. So it's there's a massive opportunity with that subsector, the gaming sector, and through our space and through space, other commercial landlords in the Baltic Triangle, Elevator's got some fantastic businesses operating out of their space. So there's an exciting time, I think, for the gaming sector in Liverpool.
And the kind of tenants that you have and your neighbours in other parts of the Triangle, are they creating proper jobs, well-paid jobs, very briefly?
Yeah, they are. I mean, this economic review we've just done has confirmed that our economic impact in terms of average incomes and growth for the city is way above what the average incomes would be. What the average income is across the city, if you like, and across the UK. So for us as a sector, we know that our businesses employ people and they're paid above average wages, and that's got to be good for the city. It's bigger spending power for people who live and work in the city. So, there's real evidence of that.
Mark, we'll take a break. We'll hear more about the success of the Baltic Triangle to see what they're doing right and whether they can repeat the experience in other parts of the city after this break. Welcome back. I'm Liam Fogarty, and today I'm talking to Mark Lawler, Managing Director of Baltic Creative, part of the boom town that is Liverpool's Baltic Triangle. You're one of a number of successful landlords in that part of town, but others are arriving all the time. Give us a sense of the bigger picture in Baltic Triangle. Who's coming? Who's investing?
Well, it's an interesting time for the Triangle. Obviously, it's seen some sort of transformational change really over the last 3, 4, 5 years. There are a lot of, there are a lot of existing businesses who've been there for a number of years, and we're keen to ensure that many of those businesses continue, and obviously they're keen to continue. So they form part of the mix as we move forward. I guess for the Triangle itself, as an area, we did get ourselves organised 12, 18 months ago. We've developed a vision, which is a private sector-led vision, developed by 4 or 5 of the businesses operating in the Triangle. That business plan, is defined in 4 key themes around land and property, around art, around events, and around infrastructure. So we've got ourselves organised as a group of businesses across the Triangle. But the challenge now, obviously, with the success of the area in recent years, is that investment is coming in. And then, the challenge is to make sure that, we protect what's good and we protect that vision, really. And that's a challenge, and it's difficult.
You mentioned before that there have been kind of creative areas in Liverpool before that have got squashed, basically, because as soon as they're successful, the rents go up, the big developers move in. What is the danger of a similar thing happening in your part of town?
Well, I guess that it is possible, but what we're intending to do, Baltic Creative are intending to do as a commercial landlord. We own our buildings, so they're protected for creative and digital industries, and we'll continue to let to creative and digital industries, for the next 200 years. I guess what we're trying to do, working with the area company, is try and protect that private sector-led vision, which is all about creative, digital, and industrious businesses. Industrious, recognising the businesses that have been there for many years. So as investment does come in and as values do rise, I guess we have to be quite practical, really. It's not about saying we don't want the investment. It's about encouraging that investment to be shaped in a way that actually supports the sectors that, the emerging cluster of creative, digital, industrial businesses. And that's about negotiation, it's about relationship building, it's about working with the city and the planning authority. And all of that takes time, but, there are sort of mechanisms in place to allow us and allow us to have that conversation. But, it takes time and it's not easy.
All the big provincial cities, it seems, have got their own little quarters now. Northern Quarter in Manchester, Bristol, Leeds, places where creative people hang out, have coffee, set up a new business, and do all that wonderful funky stuff you've been telling us about. But what can Liverpool do to ensure that people come here and not to those other cities?
Well, we would obviously champion the sort of offer in the Baltic Triangle in terms of our sort of venues and the businesses that operate there. But obviously, cities, Liverpool's a great city, and there's a lot more on offer than just the Baltic Triangle. The fantastic waterfront, the music scene, the football thing. The city's got a massive offer really, and I think when we sell our space, so we sell the Baltic Triangle to creative and digital industries, and we look for investment to come in. It's not just about what we do; it's about what the city offers. So we always try and remind people of the great city we've got.
A lot of these companies, though, they rely on really super fast broadband connections. It's a real basic part of what they do. And there was some concern a little while ago that Liverpool was really in the slow lane, that we didn't have those high-speed links. What's the situation now?
Well, for us at Baltic Creative, we took a decision a couple of years ago to deal with that issue. So we've got, connectivity for our businesses, which, allows them to do everything that they need to do. What we do is share the cost of that with all of our businesses. It's contended, so people, all use the same facility. And that's working fantastically well for us. I think other commercial landlords in the city, many of them have done the same. They've dealt with the issue. As a city, in terms of dealing with broadband, it needs to deal with it. I think it is trying to deal with it. I think at some point it will be dealt with. But for us, we just needed to make sure that we dealt with it ourselves, and we've done that.
So if you have a kind of broadband at home, some providers in the city are saying, you can have up to 8 or 12 meg. What might your tenants expect?
Well, we've got a facility which provides 120 meg up and down connectivity, which, to be honest, for all of our businesses, gamers and, app and web developers, people who are transferring data, across, internationally, music files, gaming files, all of that stuff. Our system can handle all of that. Our tenants tell us it's good value. If they had to pay for it themselves, a connection, a direct connection into their studio, it'd be incredibly expensive to get that level of up and down connectivity. Obviously, because we're the landlord, we're able to buy that in, share it with everyone, and reduces the cost, which makes it affordable, really. So that's what we've done.
What about the Baltic Triangle as a destination? Just for people who want to hang out, or people who want to spend a bit of time, maybe visitors to the city. What is that is worth seeing?
There's lots worth seeing. Obviously, I mentioned before this idea of art and events playing a big role in the area. We've got some fantastic venues operating in the Baltic Triangle now. Baltic Social's a great venue at the bottom of Elevators building. Camp and Furnace, fantastic. Constellation's a relatively new venue that's opened. Siren, underneath the women's organisation, fantastic cafe. Not least Baltic's Creatives, Unit 51 was a great venue as well. There's lots more, 24 Kitchen Street, I could go on. There's more venues opening all the time, restaurants on Blundell Street. So there's lots to visit in the Baltic Triangle. And I think as we move forward, this idea of supporting events and supporting venues, as well as art, only yesterday actually we launched a permanent art exhibition space, external exhibition space on a piece of land that Baltic Creative own. That's in the name of Claire McKeown and Paul Rice, two founder members of Baltic Creative, and we were able to launch that only yesterday. And Laura Ford, an international artist whose work is exhibited at Tate Gallery, amongst others, across the world, actually. She's worked with Castle Fine Arts, a Baltic Triangle-based foundry, and they're going to work with Baltic Creative to curate that space over, into the future. And we'll probably have works exhibit on that space. That the works will change probably every 6 to 12 months. So art, events, venues, they all play a massive role really as we move forward.
Do you think that what's gone on at Baltic Triangle and the work that you've done at Baltic Creative, do you think people in the city as a whole really appreciate what's happened, or do you find that sometimes you're finding resistance who think you're kind of just arty types in black t-shirts and not proper business people?
Yeah, I don't get that sense, to be honest. I think people in the city do value what we're doing. I think, the city understands the value of it. Our economic report evidences the value of that. We've just shared that with all of our partners, investors, banks, people, people who work with us, people who want to work with us. So, we've just produced, 3 documents which evidence the economic impact of the scheme. So, if people didn't know the value of it, I think people are beginning to understand the value of it, really. So,
I mean, I do go down there every now and again. I go to the cafe and go to Cap and Furnace and so on. And I wonder, why can't Liverpool have 6 or 7 of these places? It's quite a small, compact space. What's stopping the city from having half a dozen Baltic triangles in other deprived or rundown parts of the area?
Well, I guess if there's a plan, if there's an ambition, if there's an opportunity for that to happen, it will happen. Nothing to say it wouldn't happen, but things have got to align in order for it to happen. Yesterday we launched our economic review, and in my statement that I put out, I was talking about our ambition as a company, and it's no secret that what we've done to date has been great, and that's great to look back and recognise the value of what we've done. But it's also important to look to the future. And you talk about more space. We've got an intention to create more space specifically for design for creative and digital industries. And obviously, we think there's more opportunity in the Baltic Triangle to do more. But we may well look elsewhere in the city.
But if you think of all the kind of graduates in fine arts and computer design, fabrics and so on, there's thousands of young people in the city.
Absolutely.
That we lose every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you very briefly, do you feel that it's part of your job is to keep them here?
Absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely. One of the big drivers for us, and this is why we're in constant discussions with Liverpool University, John Moores University, the Life Sciences School and the Studio School in the Baltic Triangle. We need to make sure that those young people have a place to do what they want to do. If they've got an interest in creative and digital industries, we want them in the Baltic Triangle. So that's part of our vision and part of our aim, really, as we move forward.
Fantastic stuff. Mark Lawler, MD of Baltic Creative, thank you very much for talking to us. That's it for now. See you sometime soon.